mushroom penis. I'm sorry. Children, if you're watching, don't do that.
Luffy getting distracted by the donk.
Homie's got his priorities straight. Actually, there's no coffee. That was acting. Let's get into the review. Amazon Lily is the maybe shortest One Piece arc I have encountered so far. This really blew by quickly, and I wasn't gonna do an entire video on it, but then I realized I had enough criticisms and praises to fill out a actually decent sized review. So let's go ahead and get into it. Yes, I'll do my full standard walkthrough and breakdown because I know you guys really like that, but I'm going to talk about just overarching thoughts for a minute first, spoiler free. There's a good amount of character moments, especially for Luffy, and in terms of tonally, I feel like this arc was very much so needed for One Piece right now because it's been pretty dark for a minute, and I liked having something that felt like a breath of fresh air. There was also a good amount of comedy that did land here within this story. I found about 30% to actually make me go, which is great for when it comes to actually reading something. I'm not sure what the general fan thoughts are on this arc. I try to avoid other people's reviews. I don't even watch Murph's videos before recording my own because I want to have my raw, real thoughts. That means sometimes I get stuff wrong because my memory's not perfect, but in general, you're getting like the most fresh impression from me possible. So where my issues came in, I'm not sure if this is a popular opinion, but this felt like a very narratively wandering arc, and a lot of the side characters did not have the depth or charm that I feel One Piece usually brings to the table. And for the setting of this arc, after our crew is split up, Luffy lands on an island that is exclusively women, and with One Piece's handling of female characters, I was not sure how well this was going to be handled, and there are definitely some things that made me go, really? But there was also a good amount of humor, and I wouldn't say this was like offensively bad in terms of its portrayal of women at all. There were definitely some just immature kind of predictable moments in terms of what you would expect with this trope, but nothing that was actually as bad as what I was expecting, to be perfectly honest. I'm just surprised that my biggest criticism here is I just didn't feel the cast we were introduced to was that memorable. For example, Marguerite. In your typical One Piece story, side characters like this are going to stick with you, have so much you can learn about them from just their visual appearance, and you slowly get drip-fed a backstory and personality that becomes so rich you feel like, on average, a One Piece side character could be a protagonist in a story of their own. That's why so many of them come back to the forefront of the narrative again and again, and it feels so natural. But here, that was just not the case. The only person who really stood out as interesting was Boa, and that's because she is this really interesting powerhouse. It's unveiled to us that she is a warlord of the sea pretty early on, and a force to be taken seriously. Wow. But the amount of effort paid attention here was just not brought over to many others. And there was one joke that I wasn't sure if it was a meta commentary of the author being self-aware and poking fun at himself, or it was just, wow, did he really just make that joke with what he does? And it comes in with when the women see Luffy, a lot of them apparently have just not seen a man before, so they see him and they're like, oh my god, he has no chest at all. He has nothing there. And I think this is a piece of self-aware meta commentary because the author draws busty, voluptuous women like crazy. And I think this is him being like, yeah, I know, I don't draw flat-chested women. It's a joke. I'm sorry. Or he's that not self-aware, though I'm pretty sure it's self-awareness. And there were some other pieces of comedy of these women finding Luffy in their warrior society and like tugging on his schling schlong, is that YouTube appropriate? Thinking it's a mushroom, trying to rip it off. And this could have been turned into like something with sexual overtones, but no, it's actually just played as these people don't know what they're dealing with. And at one point, a woman asks Luffy what he refers to his testicles as something. She's like, oh, can you take them off so I can see them? And Luffy's like, no, I can't do that. It's cringy, but there's a decent amount of actual humor in the cringe. But I also am not going to dismiss anyone who found all of this pretty unfunny. I guess there's just still an immature 16-year-old inside of me who goes like, haha, when it comes to like, mushroom penis! And one final thing I'll say before we get in the actual like story review is the amount of culture presented within this all-female warrior society that's built up for Amazon Lily. It had more depth and small quirks to be interested by than I expected. It actually had the amount of personality I wanted to see put into a lot of these side characters. So as someone who's a big fan of culture and world building and fantasy, I was hooked right in by that. Like the fact that the most beautiful people are the strongest warriors, that's just like, oh, I like that they have an alternative definition of beauty on this island. Granted, Boa is still presented as just like objectively hot, and she's the strongest warrior, but there are other people who are considered like very beautiful who by traditional beauty standards in our world would not be, but here they are, and I love that because, surprise, surprise of real human psychology, beauty is often crafted and created by a culture, and there is not like inherent, there's like, just do the reading on that, it's interesting. Basically what I'm trying to say is everyone's beautiful and I want to give you a hug. But okay, Luffy, after being shot through space and time, not time, but space, lands on this island and is immediately like, oh my god, I need to find my crew, but I am hungry. Because apparently he's been flying through the air. Like, you know what? It's actually, you don't know how long Luffy's been flying through the air to be this hungry, because it could be days, and that's why he's so insanely hungry. Or he could be this hungry after like 10 minutes. We don't know. But he lands here and kind of just goes about trying to find food, and he ends up eating like hundreds of random wood mushrooms. And I'm sorry. Children, if you're watching, don't do that. Do not consume large amounts of wild fungus. That's a message from the goblin for you. And Luffy does appear to have some pretty bad side effects to this, and he's found by this all-female society who takes him back to try and help him. They think he's a woman because he's so coated and now mushrooms growing out of him. Oh my god. I didn't expect body horror to be here. And they start pulling them off him, and then they actually burn the mushrooms to prevent them from regrowing and take him to the river to wash him. Here is where we have the women discover one last mushroom attached and try and pull it off. But an older lady then realizes, oh, this is a man, put him in prison. And so they put Luffy naked in a prison cell from which he wakes up. And here's where kind of like, I don't know, I'm just gonna do a strange observation here. Sexuality in One Piece is like, they'll admire people are beautiful, but like the fact that Luffy is naked in front of these people, they ask him very like, oh, we're in like health class questions about himself. It's kind of interesting, and the tone is, again, not what you'd expect. This is just not what I was expecting, and it's surprisingly charming in a weird way. And what's also funny is Luffy displays his powers, and women are like, oh, this is just what men can do, I guess. They can stretch their arms and do what Luffy does is the superpowers, and that was kind of hilarious. But then Luffy decides like, I don't want to be in this jail cell anymore because you're gonna kill me, so he bounces out because he's a superpowered individual. But cut to Boa, the actual leader of this island, and she is kind of having a confrontation with a naval ship. And here we see a bunch of people like saying, you must come with us, you are being summoned. And she's like, no, I will not go to this council meeting. And instead she turns this entire crew of navalmen into stone. Don't mess with her. That's terrifying and also a super cool power. Love that for her. But this has helped setting up the fact that there is a larger confrontation coming between Whitebeard, there's all these pirates moving around, and of course the military that is trying to actually enforce law on the sea. And it appears that Boa, being a warlord of pirates, is a major player who is also being summoned to come and speak. Only the military leader of this ship is able to survive and withstand her powers and does not turn to stone, and he's kind of just then left there as Boa then heads on back to the island with her pirate crew. And I thought that was just kind of funny that they were like, well, you're boned, and then just leave him. And he's like, I'll wait your answer, I'm still gonna be here. But Boa returns to this island, and she is treated like a mega celebrity. She is their leader, she is their like warrior queen, and then she goes to take a bath, and this is apparently a big deal, and the whole city like makes a fuss about it. And Luffy being hunted, this is where like, okay, yeah, I definitely saw some of the nudity, butts, boob, jokes coming, because Luffy being hunted ends up crashing through the roof of the place where Boa is taking a bath. But this does have plot narrative significance because he sees something on her back and recognizes it. It was funny though, because like when Luffy noticed something on her back, I was like, did he just notice her donk? Is that what he's saying? Because she's curvy, so oh no, it's something else. It's
Luffy getting distracted by the donk.
Okay. No, it wasn't the donk. It was something that's gonna be relevant later. Sorry, I had to do that. She then tries to turn Luffy to stone, but of course it doesn't work because Rubber Man! She's also surprised that like Luffy's not affected by her beauty, because most people find her like extraordinarily attractive to the point where like the whole crew she was confronting earlier was just like losing its mind over her. But Luffy, this kind of confirms my theory that he's not straight or gay or bi or anything. Luffy's a pirate sexual. He is attracted to the idea of being a pirate and or food. That is his big drive in life. So I guess asexual, but just super passionate about these things. But Luffy is then captured again and brought to court to be executed. And here we see Boa brought out as the full queen presence she is, and she has 2 of her pirate members go to fight Luffers. And in the most Luffy defense ever. Like, I was kind of like thinking going into this, like, are we gonna get a Luffy court drama? No, we're not. This is not turned into like Luffy presenting a defense aside from being like, I need a ship! I need a ship to get off the island! But Margarita, a person who Luffy has actually had a decent amount of time with on the island, comes forward and says, hey, look, I think this is a pretty good dude, and I don't think he's lying, like, maybe, but to punish her for coming forward and being so honest, Boa turns this woman and her friends to stone. So she sucks. And she's kind of been displayed as a not very nice person. Like, some local children made a statue of her and she just broke it. Your butt. A giant cat is brought in to then kill Luffy, which was a strange like subversion. I was like, oh, they're gonna bring a giant snake because it's like a snake theme island, but no, they bring in a giant cat, which Luffy then one-shots. So you could say that Luffy on this island did slay some puss. Do you hate that joke as much as I did now that I just said it? And I want to take a moment to break away and add some criticism once again here. This was maybe the least interesting island in terms of the actual geography of it. I'm talking like literally the like landscape of this island. Usually a lot of islands have like some personalities, some like plant life, something that's visually interesting. Here it's just forest and rock and water, and it just felt very run of the book, and I just didn't feel like the author put something in this story that he usually takes the time and craft to do so, and it is coming through with those like lack of side characters interesting or like lack of visual interest in the island. I don't know, but there was so much effort for like culture, and especially with a lot about where we get to backstory of Boa, so I don't know, I'm just conflicted. But then 2 of Boa's friends turn into these giant snake creatures, and Luffy is fighting them, and his powers are being interrupted and hurt by this curse, vism, poison stuff going on. It's a lot of back and forth, but in an amazing character moment, Luffy takes away the stone statue of Margarita because he doesn't want it risk being broken, because he knows like if it shatters, she will be forever dead, and he puts it to the side, which just in this moment shows how kind he is, and he's not like trying to avoid a fight, but he's aware there's more complex stuff going on. So we're seeing a lot of Luffy just, he's going above and beyond to avoid a final fight until he decides, okay, let's fight. And he also displays something called a conqueror's spirit, which I wasn't entirely sure what this was about, but I think it's just establishing that Luffy himself has a presence, a spirit about him that actually is a resistance to a lot of the magic that's on display here, because he's just such a freaking powerful willhouse. That's thrill house. He has so much willpower, or I don't know why I said Simpsons Thrill House, but now he starts trying and he goes gear 2, and this goes from him being beat up a lot to him fighting, and it's a surprisingly even match for even Luffy in gear 2 with some of the weird stuff that's going on, but eventually he does come through and comes out victorious. He does another kind of predictable thing, but it's something I always enjoy, where he ended up like tying 2 of the snake's like tails together, and even like this fire. He does a lot, but he wins, and he sends one over an edge, and her back is revealed, and Luffy knows from earlier when he saw Boa like conceal her back that this is something that she does not want on display, so he immediately, again, displaying his character, jumps on her back to help cover it, and he says, I'm not your enemy. We can fight, that's fine, but please, can we just talk?
Luffy saying that our fight and what you have on your back are 2 different things is just speaking to the actual awareness and intelligence he does have as a character that he just often kind of keeps under his personality and desires, but he is far more aware than I think most people give Luffy credit for.
But he is still an absolute idiot. And that's just like Luffy to the core. This series displays its character's personality so boldly, and it's not gotten tired yet. I like seeing Luffy be this just always in the like trying to help good person, and I love it. But now we're gonna start slowly tying into a lot of the world building that happened in the last arc, because after this fight is resolved and Boa just sees like how good of a person Luffy is, she comes forward and says, look, I will either give you a ship or bring back Marguerite. Which do you choose? And Luffy goes, hey, bring her back, please, resurrect her. That's what needs to be done. Just again, showing how much of a good person he is, and so Boa does, and Luffy's brought in for a dinner after that. And one of the better pieces of humor that really did get me, one of the women he just fought steps forward to thank Luffy, and Luffy's like, I'm hungry! I cannot eat your thanks! Bring food! There's beautiful women trying to thank him, and Luffy's getting food. Homie's got his priorities straight. But Boa brings Luffy in to show him her curse, and then we get her backstory, where some of the world nobles brought her into slavery as a child and forced the powers she has upon her, which is a couple different subversions of this trope. So the petrifying people to stone trope has been around obviously since like ancient Greece, but it's usually tied into like ugly and undesirable, or a curse like this is brought in by like, you know, I think of like the king who turns everything to gold and he touches it by foolishness. Here we have someone who's causing petrification due to something that was forced onto them. They are not ugly, they are still beautiful, they are still a warrior, they are still proud, they are still confident, but they have this thing they're having to deal with. And I don't know, she is a character I'm very interested to see, and I'm hoping we don't see her regress to a not as treated respectfully female character, which, no offense, in One Piece hands, I'm just not super sure about. And the themes touched on in the World Nobles, there's a lot of implied even worse for Boa. Your heart breaks for her. How can it not? Slavery is something that like my heart bleeds for immediately. There's a few things you can incorporate in your story, like a father-son dynamic where like one of them dies, or slavery where someone's forced into, have their childhood taken away. This kind of stuff just immediately, I'm going to have my heart break and care for a character. So I kind of went from being like, you're a jerk who broke a statue children made for you, you suck, to I get why you're kind of jaded and you're also cool, but maybe be less of a jerk. And then Luffy finally explains how he got there, which is nice to finally have him be able to be like, here's my side of things. But with the brand on her back actually not being like a part of some curse, well, it is a curse. It is a curse metaphorically because it's this slave mark that's been left there. And that's, I don't know. And it turns out that a lot of pirates are former slaves and they've incorporated these slave marks into their symbols. And this is just such a, I love this world building, what it's adding to the pirates' fight and putting us more on their side. If there was hesitation within you of like, should I really be siding with pirates? Like, obviously, in our world, historically, pirates are not good people, but there are larger class circumstances that result in people taking up lives like this. And One Piece is not flinching away from bringing in that kind of cultural class examination to show how organized crime and people in these situations don't always necessarily want to go down these life paths. They're often forced here, which can be in contrast with Luffy, who's so aggressively searching out this life, but I'm just really liking how it's all playing out. But she escaped, she formed this pirate crew, she came to this island and made the society and culture we're seeing now. And I was expecting to get information on why the obsession with snakes, but we don't really get that. At least, did I miss it? Let me know in the comments down below why the snakes were such a big thing here. But we also see Boa for the first time really actually emotionally crumble here and start showing a lot more humanity. And so Oda, with his character work, when he wants to make you care for someone, he's just going to. Same thing with Hachi, like, oh, this guy was a bat, but now you get it and you like him. And same thing here, now I like Boa. And she says she will give Luffy a ride off the island and food. And Luffy loves that second part. And Luffy goes and eats a lot and parties very hard with these people. And there's a couple more like actually successful comedic moments of them being like, is this just like what men are like? As Luffy is like tanking in gallons of food. But we see Boa then like passes out and she's clearly having some like sickness issues. Long story short, she ends up leaving the island with Luffy to go to the place she was summoned from that vice admiral before, smuggling Luffy onto his ship and reviving his crew to then actually just be taking Luffy and her, just the two of them, out to this council, but on the condition, here's a big reveal that's happened, that they're going to swing by where Luffy's brother is being held prisoner because Luffy's brother's card is burning. It's showing signs of him in real danger, and we also learn that he is going to be executed as a part of these larger political moves going on. And so, yeah, that dismissal we had from Luffy a little bit ago where he's like, my brother's in trouble, but he can handle it. Now it's like, no, he needs your help, and you need to go. We learn all this because an old lady reads the newspaper, which just works for the storytelling and world building here somehow. But not that we needed more of it, but this just like doubles down the motivation for Luffy to reassemble his crew and help his brother, because he admits his brother is stronger than him, which I didn't actually expect to hear Luffy to say. But yeah, he says, no, my brother's stronger than me, but we need to get the crew together and go save him. So extra motivation for this crew to get back together. And I'm just gonna go ahead and slip more into the review of the arc here, because there's a few last minute thoughts that I think are really important. This definitely did feel like a bit of filler between a lot of like the bigger gears moving on, but it was proper filler where we're learning about what's next and the ramifications of what's been done, so I didn't hate that. Filler is sometimes needed. I'm not saying it's a filler arc. I know it's not technically, you know what I get. You get what I mean. But now it does feel like that something big on the horizon I mentioned is well on its way. There's this end scene though where like Boa is shown to like Luffy, and that's where it kind of put that tinge of, oh no, is she just going to be reduced to love interest character, or do something even more shallow, like having problems with other female crew members, stuff like that, where I'm like, please be better than that. Please don't reduce this person who is presented to us as a powerful warrior queen to just like pining after Luffy. That would kill me. So while this arc did feel necessary, and there were a lot of elements to it I did enjoy, there were plenty of problems. It just felt somewhat more hollow than what we get in terms of the just characterization and world building constantly. A lot of the world building I did like, but it came for significant moments for information down the line, not necessarily what's happening now. That was largely supported by the culture that we were experiencing, but I don't know, there just wasn't as much oomph. And having only one character from a whole arc for me to really be invested in, and that's Boa, that's actually, I guess it sings to One Piece's praises that seems like it should be more, but it still feels like it should be more. I wish it had been more of a visually interesting in terms of the geographical arc, and the narrative just, it feels like, again, I'm stuck in this place where like, would it have been better if it was shorter and more concise, or actually blown out more to let Oda do some of that really fantastic character work he's such a master of? So I was kind of, it's just stuck in that awkward middle spot where I feel like Thriller Bark suffered from as well, where it tried to do a lot with not enough time, but some of the stuff could have been cut, but I don't necessarily want it to, so I don't want it to be bigger or smaller. I feel like both would be better options than this awkward middle size. But I still had a good time with it, and it was more lighthearted, it gave us some more deeper themes, while also kind of giving us a moment to breathe from a lot of these denser things happening. So overall, I'm feeling a solid, very solid 6.5 out of 10, and I'm still, of course, looking forward to the next one. Let me know what you think of the Amazon Lily, is that what it's called? Yes, arc in the comments down below, and like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and have a good one, y'all. Peace.
And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreon, Jeremy Turner!